everyone. Welcome back to Astrology Now with astrologer Babula Clement and myself, Cheryl Gottschall, the astrology initiate here, where we explore the cycles of the moon and the cosmos and how they ripple through our daily lives. And in this episode, we're diving deep, very deep, into the mysterious waters of the full moon in Scorpio. And this isn't your average moon phase either. Scorpio is going to bring all that intensity and transformation and emotional truths that we often keep hidden, even from ourselves. So when the full moon lights up this powerful sign, it's like a cosmic spotlight shining into the shadows, revealing what needs to be released, healed, or reborn. So whether you're feeling stirred up or strangely intuitive or just plain overwhelmed, like I've been, you're not alone, and you're not imagining it. In this episode, we'll talk about what this lunar cycle and the planetary movements have us engaging with, both individually and collectively. So take a deep breath, hold your nose, and let's begin the descent into Scorpio's depths together. So welcome back, Babula, after hiatus from Astrology Now. It is great to have you back.
Thank you, Cheryl. It's amazing and wonderful to be back. And I just want to say so many thank yous to many people who've reached out saying, like, are you okay? And we miss you. So comments like that. But yes, I've been on a deep journey myself with just a difficult thing going on in my body that caused considerable pain. So life was just giving me a very clear message. I needed to stop for a while. There was a lot on my plate and I just needed to stop. So I am in recovery. I'm slowly getting back and I thought it's time Cheryl and I got this show back on the road again.
Well, you know what? You having that time out actually gave me time out, and it's been a great time to not just from that, but to reevaluate things and what we want to get on with and
Yeah.
simplify life a little bit.
Yeah, and reprioritize.
Yes,
Both of us were having a chat about that, about how we've kind of clarified our priorities and need to say no to certain things that aren't as important as we might have thought they were.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, might do a little recap if you like.
Yes.
So, why don't you kick that off?
Okay, great. So, we haven't been doing these podcasts for 2 months. And of course, the past 2 months, specifically March and April, it's interesting that we weren't doing them through March and April because they were probably the two most powerful months of the year, which a lot of people would have loved us to be chatting about the astrology of those, but they had their impact on me particularly as well. So there was a lot of massive astrology in March, and it impacted my chart very, very strongly. So down I went. And in a nutshell, the gist of it for everybody, I had my own specific transits, of course, was about all these planets moving backs and forwards across the Pisces and Aries cusp. And that's no ordinary cusp. We're talking about the end of the zodiac and the beginning of the zodiac. So it's very much a wonderful metaphor for, Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, and the beginning and the end, and the beginning and the end, and a lot of closure and releasing and Venus turned retrograde, went back into Pisces. She's now moved forward, is now moving back through into Aries. Mercury retrograded back. Neptune crossed that incredible 0 degrees Aries line. Saturn's going to come through at the end of this month. There's just been so much happening in that area of the chart. And it's not over because that process will continue through the year.
Yes.
Neptune's going to retrograde and get back into Pisces. Saturn soon will go into Aries and for a couple of months, and then it'll go back into Pisces. So we're all in this incredible transformative process of coming to terms with a lot of things, and everybody's feeling it in relation to their own life circumstances.
Mm.
We're seeing it in the world, like so much is happening in the world on a daily, big things on a daily basis
Mm.
everywhere. And that's just how things are and how they're meant to be. There's no getting away from that.
The aliens haven't come and picked us up yet, Bill. I'm really disappointed.
I know, I know, like, aren't we done yet? Haven't we had enough yet? It would seem not. We've still
Dear.
got a bit more cooking to do. Um,
Don't they know Pluto's in Aquarius? Come on, guys.
come on, get it together. Well, in the next couple of years, of course, as Uranus goes into Gemini,
Mm.
we're going to have so much to talk about, Cheryl, in the coming years, because Uranus in Gemini will make a series of trines to Pluto in Aquarius
Yeah.
over a 2 to 3 year period. And if they don't show up, then Cheryl, I just, I don't know what's going on. But it's not just about that, of course. It's many, many, many things. So just a quick recap before we dive being the operative word into the full moon in Scorpio. So on the 1st of May, Venus made her re-entry into Aries. And of course, the significance of that Venus retrograde is huge because it's all about the Venus star point that she forms in these retrograde periods, and the mythology around Inanna's ascent into the underworld and how Venus changes from morning star to evening star to morning. It's a huge thing, really.
Mm.
And so on the 1st of May, she moved back into Aries, made a conjunction with Neptune, of course, who's sitting there at the entrance to Aries. On the 5th of May, our friend Pluto, Lord of the Underworld and the ruler of Scorpio, turned retrograde, which happens every year. Pluto will now be retrograde for about 5 months. And
I'm feeling it.
yeah,
That's why I'm
yeah,
dressed like this today. I'm feeling it.
yes, exactly. So there's this, pull, we feel this powerful, energetic pull more downwards and inwards. Um, on the 10th, Mercury, who had done in March a retrograde journey from Aries back into Pisces, moved back into Pisces fairly quickly and to Aries, and on the 10th of May, moves into Taurus. So by the time this video is released, it's probably just gone into Taurus. So Mercury really brings in the mental process that will be happening for us all in a much more grounded, pragmatic way that's also like a slowing down. I think we'll be able to appreciate that, feeling a bit like we can slow things down, come to ground, take a breath, get a bit organized, organize our life a little bit. And mentally spending time in nature will be extremely helpful while Mercury goes through Taurus. It's a very sensible sign, Taurus. I love that about Taurus. Then, of course, on the 13th of May, we have the full moon. And just to give the specifics about that, Eastern Standard Time in Australia, that's at 2:55 in the morning, Tuesday morning, the exact moment of the full moon at 22 degrees of Scorpio. And it's a very significant full moon for a number of reasons. Because at this time every year, we always have a Scorpio full moon when the moon's opposite Taurus. In the Buddhist world, that's like a hugely important, it's probably their most important day of the year. It's called Wesak, and it's regarded as the birthday of Buddha. Whether that's historically correct, who's to say? But many say that Buddha was born, became enlightened, and died on this full moon. So this Wesak festival this time every year has a lot of very esoteric significance, and just culturally, for all the Buddhist countries around the world and the Buddhist peoples, it is a very, very powerful and important time. And it's fascinating that it occurs across this Taurus Scorpio axis. Those two signs are very potent signs. And so just to touch on a couple of other things about this year's Scorpio full moon, is that the full moon makes a conjunction with one of the important asteroid goddesses. Her name is Juno, and she is, in the Greek mythology anyway, the wife of Zeus. But way, way back, originally, she was a powerful goddess queen in her own right. So Juno has a lot to do with powerful relationship dynamics and partnership and equality in relationship. And we may see some significant expressions of this even out in the world. You know, you'll often see Juno showing up strongly in the charts of what the world likes to call the power couples,
Oh, yes.
right? It's a very Juno thing.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see and also in our own lives regarding relationship issues. And because it's the Scorpio full moon, and not only that, the sun is conjunct Uranus, so the full moon is opposite Uranus, opposite Juno. There's a lot of big dynamics of change, of shock waves, of breakthrough, of breaking away, breaking up. So yeah, watch that space. That could be very interesting on the world stage.
Mm.
But for some people in their own personal lives, if they've got planets around these degrees, 22, 24, 26 degrees of these two signs, that could be playing out in their own life.
Be interesting to see where that is in Donald Trump's chart because he's breaking away, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, never a dull moment. I mean, if you want to be sitting on the edge of your seat, watch that space because there's always something going on.
Yeah.
Um,
He's
I was
fulfilling
just
his
thinking,
role.
I was thinking this morning when I was in the kitchen, regardless of anyone's opinion of him, what I honor is um, there's never been a more exciting politician on this planet, like for decades.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's riveting stuff.
Yeah, and with the breakaway, I'm thinking, America's breaking away from lots of things, lots of other countries. It's so that relationship is changing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
of course, he's very, very Uranian. He's a
Yeah,
very Uranian chart. And, the recent elections in Canada, Alberta is making very strong waves around wanting to break away from Canada.
yeah, yeah. Interesting
Amazing,
times.
interesting times. So, and so Juno might even show up around power relationships that aren't even about marriage. It can be, political partnerships and relationships. Yeah, like dynamics really changing. And the interesting thing, of course, about the full moon being in Scorpio, as you so eloquently expressed in your introduction, um, things may be revealed,
Mm.
and so these power plays that occur in the world, often there's a lot going on in the shadows that we don't know about, that we're not privy to.
I said that exact thing this morning. Yes,
Right.
yes.
Yeah. So we see what's happening on the outside and what we're told.
Mm.
And so I often go, oh, I wonder what's really going on there.
Yeah,
Yeah, what's that about?
yes. What's really going on in the shadows?
Yeah,
Mm.
that's right. So the impact, and this full moon too, because of the impact of Uranus so strong, um, will also manifest as big earth movements.
Mm.
There will absolutely be earth movements and some big weather events and earth events,
Yeah.
and that can include, volcanoes, earthquakes, explosions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're already seeing that, aren't we? Look at the people in Santorini in Greece, they evacuated.
that's right.
Mm.
That's right. So, things. Oh, see, there's another thing too that I have to throw in. Well, there's a lot around this full moon. And then I'm, dying to hear more about your reflections on this. Um, Hygeia, one of my very favorite goddesses, she's the goddess of healing and medicine. She, on this full moon, is at 26 degrees of Taurus, exactly conjunct Uranus. And 26 degrees of Taurus is the exact position of the fixed star Algol, who traditionally is regarded as a demon star
Mm,
and is related to the story of Medusa. And people often say in the astrological world, heads will roll, the lopping off of heads.
yeah.
So this is a very potent, powerful full moon that is likely to be extremely eventful.
Mm, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I was also thinking about the parts of the body that it will govern too, which is, the lower part of the body.
Yes, the whole kind of reproductive area.
Yes, the genitals and the rectum and all the ovaries and the prostate and the
That's
all that
right.
stuff, all the lower part of the body where
That's
things come
exactly
out.
right. Exactly.
Yes,
Because we're down in the underworld, aren't we, with
that's
Scorpio?
right. I don't know how to say that carefully,
Nicely.
but yeah. So I, that hey, who knows what's going to happen there? But if you're having a problem down there, that might be why.
Yeah, that's right. Because, Scorpio's absolutely, it's about regeneration and sexuality and the sexual organs and the reproductive organs.
Yeah,
Absolutely, it is.
yeah,
It's also the processes of elimination. So it includes bowels and toxicity,
yeah.
and how do we eliminate that from the body? Because the energy of Taurus can get really stuck.
Mm,
There's a resistance to change, but of course, Uranus is very active here. Uranus has been going through Taurus now for about 6 years.
yeah.
So it's been shaking that stuck ground up.
Yes.
And, I will be slightly crude here. I mean, I could say it cruder, but I'll try and say it pleasantly. There's nothing like a good bowel release to feel like, wow, everything feels better. And that's literal, but it's also a metaphor, that there's clearing out of old, stuck, toxic material.
Yes. I might sort of use the analogy of a pimple erupting and
Yes,
releasing.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It's all about the purging, and it can get really dramatic.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And so Hygeia is here, bringing in some healing awareness, energy, and awareness perhaps of some important health issues. Remember, Taurus is also the throat and
Mm,
the thyroid and the larynx and the vocal cords. This whole area around the throat.
yeah.
And do you know that's very interesting? There is a connection between the throat and the lower chakras and the reproductive organs. There
Yes.
is absolutely a connection. There is a relationship because signs in polarity are always in relationship to each other.
Well, that's interesting because I was told by an endocrinologist that the tissue behind the eyes, in the thyroid, the breasts, and the ovaries is all the same type of tissue.
Interesting.
So if you have a problem in one, it can trigger problems in the other.
Mm,
Yeah. So and when you look at that in relation to the chakras and the
yes.
astrology, it's you can see it.
Yes. That's so fascinating. Our bodies are extraordinary.
Mm,
Um, Taurus and Scorpio also have a great deal to do with fertility, and reproduction, particularly Taurus.
yeah.
It's an extremely fertile sign because Taurus is all about growth and building and sustaining, long term. And of course, Scorpio is always about death and release and endings and closure. So
Mm,
these two signs, they hold a very powerful dynamic together. So this is a very
yeah.
potent and interesting full moon. There's also an asteroid called Merlin sitting at 20 of Scorpio, on the moon as well. Of course, Merlin's all kind of mystery and magic and power and that realm.
Yes.
So,
Way to say
yeah,
it.
there's a lot happening here.
Before we
Do you
go,
know, I'm just,
oh, sorry, you finish.
just one couple of things. Just before we go on, there's a couple of other asteroids. I like to always check them and see what's going on
Mm,
because they just can add these other nuances. There's an asteroid named Israel. There's a lot of asteroids with names of countries and towns and cities and geographical places. There's an asteroid with the name Israel, and it's at 22 degrees of Taurus on this full moon, which is the exact degree of the sun and the full moon.
mm,
So there's a lot going on in that part of the world as well.
yeah.
Yeah,
I just wanted to back up the conversation to when Neptune entered Aries at the end of March. As you said before, anything going over the into Aries is powerful because it's the first sign in the zodiac. Um, I was reading that that's a 165 reset cycle. It's a 165-year cycle, and
that's right.
Neptune hasn't been in Aries since 1861 when the American Civil War broke out. So
That's
wow,
right.
that's big.
It is.
And I really like how astrologers, to know what's going on now, they look back to when this has happened before and to get an idea of what else we might see now. So
That's right.
I just find that really interesting because United States is really, it's got its Pluto return. Um,
Yes.
and there's a dissolution of the states of being, from my perspective, of being the grand United States, and it's like it's all coming tumbling down, really.
Yes. That's right. It's sort of falling apart in many ways
Yeah,
because there needs to be a resurrection, it needs to be kind of rebuilt in a way, in a very new way, based on the true original intent, because it got sidetracked very much over the years. So, um,
so
yes, these big cycles are fascinating.
the United States is becoming the disunited states in so
That's
many
right.
ways. It's just
That's right.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw that in there because that is a big, powerful cycle.
Yes, it is. And it's an opportunity for something very new to arise on the planet to be birthed, but it won't, of course, happen immediately and overnight.
Yeah,
Neptune will be in Aries for 14 years.
yeah,
And Saturn, of course, is going to start to come into Aries. At the
yeah,
end of this month, it will make its first move.
yeah.
Then it will slip back into Pisces. And, as we know, in early 2026,
Mm,
Saturn and Neptune will both move into Pisces and they will join together. They will make a conjunction, which in itself is incredibly important,
yeah,
right at the doorway to Aries. We're looking at something very new coming
yeah.
in.
Definitely, I think it's uncharted territory. Like,
Yeah,
and it's like a deal's been struck, I think, with Saturn and Neptune in Aries. It's like, here's the handshake, let's get on with it.
yeah. And there's such different energies too,
Yeah,
so different.
yeah,
And I feel as we're talking about this that what we've been through in the last 2 months with these Venus making her important retrograde across this cusp and Mercury then doing exactly the same thing. Um, it's where, and I've experienced this, where we're getting a taste of what we in our own selves and our own lives are needing to really look at, well, what do I need to be releasing here? What changes do I need to be making in my own thinking, my own processing, my own life in preparation for this incredible time that's coming. So
yeah.
we've been getting an opportunity, I think, to sort of work through a lot of that stuff,
Yes, I think so. Yeah,
ahead of the big shift.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
that's certainly been true for me, and I'm seeing it here in my own family. It feels like we're on the brink of some quite significant decisions being made, specifically in relation to, my granddaughter. It's sort of where we're really processing a lot around that. So,
yes.
things like that, and everyone will have their own situation that they
Yeah.
might be able to relate to, as I say that.
Did we? I got a bit lost in there. I was off on my own thoughts. Did we cover Pluto squaring Mercury there?
No.
Oh, okay. Because you say things and then I have a thought and then
Well,
I
that's
tune back
right.
in and I go, oh yeah, yeah.
That's right. And the thing, I must remember to come back to that, and then we forget.
Yeah. So Pluto square Mercury coinciding with this full moon. That's bound to trigger some conflict, I think.
Yes, yes, yes. So that's right. So, Pluto is in Aquarius squaring Mercury in Taurus. And Mercury in Taurus, very pragmatic, very grounded, very sensible, realistic, you know,
Yeah,
um, always working towards practical outcomes. And there's Pluto in Aquarius, really challenging that very, grounded sort of a thinking. And
mm,
what I've experienced with Pluto's making strong aspects to Mercury, it can be very powerful communication, and it can be, I have something important to say, and I need to say it. Like this
yeah,
needs to be said,
yeah,
even if it ruffles feathers or upsets people. And it might be speaking of things that are considered taboo, because it's
yeah.
Pluto.
I think I think it will be very hard to resolve differing points of view with that aspect, especially when dealing with political ideologies.
Yeah,
But and we talk about politics when we're with other people too. So I'd just say tread carefully when it comes to discussing current events because, you know, the energy will be more emotional and sensitive than usual.
yeah,
And debating issues with those who oppose your beliefs will probably lead to major drama. So it's good to
yeah,
just, try and avoid engaging in those topics because they'll be triggering. Uh, yeah, and also
absolutely.
stay awake from those who leave a wake of chaos behind them. We have people in our lives who are like that. Stay away from them. Usually family members sometimes. You don't need it. Step away from
That's
those
right.
people so that you can tap into that stabilizing Taurus energy.
That's right. So Taurus is beautifully stabilizing. It's a wonderful word for it. The other side of it, of course, can be absolute stubborn refusal to budge an inch, which is sometimes fine
Yeah,
and required in a situation, but sometimes it's not. It's just no, 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 not going to change my mind. Doesn't matter what you tell me. No, I don't want to know. Don't tell me. I don't want to know about it. So it can also be that, which also is part of what you're talking about, these confrontations and battles that can go on.
yeah. Well,
Best to step aside.
my son-in-law is a Taurus, and my daughter does a lot of eye rolling and you know so um so I've said to her you have to, I mean, the automatic setting is no. Asking them a question, you want to do this, can we spend money on this, make this improvement? No. I said you have to lead them into thinking it's their idea. You've got to sow the seeds for them to think that they're making the decision. So approaching those lovely Taurians in our life with, and I've got a great friend who's a double Taurus, and I say, what's your thoughts about? And what would happen if we did this? So there's a way around doing those
Right.
sorts of things, getting around Taurus.
That's right. And Taurus also needs time to think something through. So it's not to be rushed. Whereas Mercury in Aries, where it was previously, well, just like, let's go, let's go. But no, in Taurus, let's think this through. I need to process this. Give me time. And I'll get there, but don't push me.
Yes, that makes it worse.
So those kinds of things can absolutely come up with a Pluto square to Mercury, which is occurring on that full moon. I mean, also, the black moon Lilith is in the mix as well because she is sitting there at those early degrees of Scorpio.
Mm,
Um, and Black moon Lilith is going to be in Scorpio, speaking of the Scorpio full moon, for the rest of the year.
Yes.
And she can really dredge up some really deep, potent stuff from out of the Shadowlands, very, very much. And, we must also bring in the theme of death as well on this Scorpio full moon, and with the Black Moon Lilith going through the sign of Scorpio now, so
Yes.
that will be going on in some people's lives, a loss of
Yeah.
loved ones or significant people.
So this full moon is on the 13th of May, Australian time.
Yes.
So we're still on the full moon, so we better crack on, Babula, because it's got 2 weeks to cover.
We sort of got 2 months behind us to catch up on. Okay, so let's move. So yeah, we probably won't have time to talk a lot about Ceres because I had a lot of detail about that, but I might come back to that on the 18th of May. So here, if we look at the chart, there's the sun at 22 on the full moon, there's Uranus at 26. By the 18th, that sun will make an exact conjunction with that Uranus. So that will really also be a very dynamic day, and that's at 27 of Taurus. And of course, Uranus at 27 of Taurus means it's making its way through the last degrees of the sign of Taurus.
Yeah.
Um,
And I was reading this is the last time that's going to happen for the next 80 years.
that's right,
Mm.
because Uranus has an 84-year cycle. So
Mm.
there's all these very slow-moving outer planets that, have these big, long cycles over many years,
Yeah.
all changing signs within a short time span. It's quite something.
Yeah.
Um,
I
Go
I
on.
was having a think about Uranus in Taurus, Sun conjunct Uranus in Taurus, and I was wondering, because Uranus is such a upheaval, a sign with so much upheaval, sorry, planet with so much upheaval there. I was thinking it might even turn us inside out so our authentic self can be revealed to the outside world. And that's something that some people really don't want. But, I've seen this with some people that I've known that things have happened and it has made them, show their soft underbelly to the world. I think that's really interesting because that redefines our ideas of security, and how we present ourselves to the world as well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a wonderful insight because Taurus is all about security,
Mm,
and we are having to look at that in a whole new way, aren't we? As Uranus
mm,
has been going through this sign,
yeah.
and I've just lost the thread for a moment. There was something there. I've
Redefining
lost.
our, sorry.
Yeah, no, go on.
I was going to say, was it to do about redefining our ideas of security?
Yes, I started to talk about that, but there was something a little bit.
Okay, revealing ourselves to the outside
Oh,
world.
I know what it was. Uranus is often like an energy that can crack things open,
Yes,
like a breakthrough.
yes.
Because when you think about an earthquake, which is a Uranian event, absolutely, in that moment, in those few seconds or minutes, everything has suddenly changed.
Mm,
Nothing is the same. And
mm,
so when we have some kind of a breakthrough or a big aha moment or something happens, it might even come as in a shock because Uranus is also an energy of shock. It's very much shock waves.
yeah.
Um, it can expose and reveal something about ourselves
Mm,
that's just been dying to get out,
yes. That
you know?
escape hatch.
Yeah, it's like for example, it can be something like I see it all the time. Someone who went down a very sensible career path, encouraged by family and society, and it was going to be that's a very good career choice, and there's all good reasons why. But in their heart, they're actually a musician or an artist or a healer. And sometimes it's a Uranian transit, and they just go, either something will happen to force the shift and something to crack, or something in them just goes, I'm done, I can't do this one more day.
Mm,
Bam, and it's changed.
Yeah.
Those Uranian moments, I see that a lot, with client work and so on in my own life. So
Yes.
Uranus is important. He's the great liberator, the great awakener. And his methods are not often subtle, they can be quite dramatic.
It can be like a ton of bricks, or it just
And
comes out of nowhere.
out of nowhere and
Yeah.
radical.
And that's why you see some couples that I've known, and it happened to me as well with my first husband. It's like you say, you're going on, you have a long fuse, then one day you just go, nah, that's it, boom.
Done.
And there was, it out of the blue, but something inside bubbles up. So the lava erupts.
That's right.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be angry or anything. It just breaks down, breaks through, breaks up.
That's right. And there's a moment where you're done.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
there's no going back from that moment. And it looks like it's out of nowhere, but for you or for the individual, it's been coming for a while.
Yes.
But to the outside, it's like, oh my God, the outside world, people around you are shocked because outwardly it looks like it's come out of nowhere. Everything seemed to be fine. So that happens with people in their relationships, with their family life, with career paths.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It's like people who just lose their jobs, like, oh, sorry, you're being made redundant. What? What's
that's
happening?
right. And then when you start to ask them questions, they'll say, "Well, actually, I was never really happy there, and really, what I really wanted to do."
Yeah,
And the change is sometimes forced upon us, but it's often because that's what needs to happen.
yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah. So it's a very Uranian full moon energy, this one. And it's in Scorpio, so we're talking death and rebirth.
Mm,
It is a powerful one. Um, on the 21st of May, the sun will leave Taurus. So we're in the Taurian phase now of, being grounded, practical, getting organized, sorting finances, those kinds of things. We'll go into Gemini.
yeah, I was going to say, and then we have Gemini.
And then we have Gemini. Boom. And it's a total change of energy. What I love with the zodiac is every sign is completely different to the sign next to it.
Yeah,
So we're moving from fixed earth to mutable air. So suddenly the energy then becomes light. It moves upwards into the mental plane, moves very, very, very quickly. The Gemini energy is like quicksilver.
yeah,
And the quick, agile mind. I know quite a lot of Geminis and people with quite a lot of Gemini, and their minds are super fast,
yes,
super quick.
yes. I can know. I finish sentences all the time with people I know who are close to me, and like they go, "How do you know what I was going to say? I'm already there. You haven't even left the starting gate, and I'm at the end. I've crossed the finish line. I'm sorry, but that's the way my mind works."
That's right. That's right. And it's also what happens in Gemini is that the mind's going here, there, and everywhere.
Mm.
So it's not only moving quickly, it's taking in so many different things very, very, very quickly.
It has
Um,
the capacity to do that. It's
yeah.
about the process of the mind, isn't it? It's about getting that information and the process to then get it out there.
And to disseminate it. That's right. So Gemini doesn't hold information.
No.
Information comes in and it pours out. It has to. It
Yeah.
has to speak, communicate, write,
Yeah.
express it, share it. That's what its job is. It's the sign of the messenger. So we're
Yeah.
going to be very busy with communication during that period.
Mm.
Um, let me see. On the 22nd, as we move through the month, Hygeia, the day after the sun goes into Gemini, Hygeia herself, the asteroid goddess of healing, will also go into Gemini. So that can be a period where we're a number of months where perhaps information related to health, healing, medicine might come to us. We might be having a conversation with someone who suddenly says, you might be sharing something about your health, for example, and they say, "Oh, you need to go and see this person." they're brilliant at that. Or you read something, you suddenly, it might be someone who wants to study or learn more about health. Of course, Gemini is also about the lungs.
Yes.
Some people, that could be a period where their lung health needs some attention.
I'm also just wondering because it's Gemini, so it's about speaking and communicating. It could also be apologies as well, because heal
That's,
because words are healing.
yes, in terms of hygiene.
Mm,
Exactly.
mm.
Exactly. Because normally I wouldn't necessarily put apology with Gemini
No,
specifically,
no. But with
but but with hygeia, yes,
mm,
and it can be as simple as, look, I was out of line. I'm really sorry I said that. And in fact, it wasn't right anyway.
yeah,
But you see, Gemini's mind moves so quickly and it dances all the time with the opposites. Sometimes Gemini might say, well, I didn't say that.
yes.
Yeah, because it's kind of it might disconnect with something it said earlier. So there might be all sorts of, or there might be issues that come up in communication and relationships that need some attention with Hygeia going through Gemini.
It can also,
Like, can we have a conversation about, or can we go back to what we were talking about this morning?
yeah. It can also be about the ability to hold opposing views at the same time, that
Exactly.
duality, which I often
E-
do. And people
Exactly.
go, because they go,
Exactly.
one or the other. No, actually, it could be both.
That's the real gift of Gemini. Amazing capacity to hold
Yeah.
all these opposite points of view.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, and then on the 25th, Mercury, still moving through Taurus, makes a conjunction with Uranus.
Hmm.
Um, and that's the same day that Saturn, drum roll please, moves into Aries.
Yes.
So just
That's
a
serious
few,
business.
yes,
Hmm.
Saturn's a very serious fellow.
Hmm.
And, Saturn can kind of rub our nose in it and demand that we pay attention to something and deal with something and bring our focus there. Um, he's also the planet that represents, uh, um, delays and obstacles and constraints. And we know how Aries does not like to be constrained in any way.
Hmm.
It's a sign of that fiery impulse to just move. It's the sign of birth, new beginnings. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Yeah.
Got things to do. Impatient. Now, Saturn says go and puts a red light in front of you, or a stop sign in front of you. So Saturn, we'll start to get a taste for a few months of Saturn in Aries,
Hmm.
then it will go back. And then by early next year, it's back into Aries and will stay there for around 2.5 years.
Hmm.
It's a very interesting one.
It is, and I'm thinking, Saturn's about structures and about creating borders. And look at what's happening with the southern states, the southern border in the US,
Yeah,
reinforcing that border to try and stop. I'll get it out yet. To stop the cartels moving drugs into the US. And I was reading that just a few days ago, they successfully seized 11.5 kilos of fentanyl, which is the largest fentanyl bust in history. That's 3 million pills. So Saturn's doing its job there. It's
that's right.
it's a success story there.
That's right. That's right. And it's like Aries, when Aries has a bit of a real goal and a real focus, Saturn here can help to apply that Aries fiery energy and courage and guts that Aries has to forge new pathways with a real sense of importance and significance and commitment. What are we committing to as we move forward in our life,
Yeah.
and how do we use the certain constraints of Saturn for the benefit in the long run. Saturn's always about, the long run. It's not just the quick fix. And laying foundations and like you said, putting up boundaries and borders and
Mm.
containing the energy a bit so that there's a really good, solid outcome.
Yeah, and that Aries energy it is about uncharted territory, and it's a territory that the brave will lead us through. But then Saturn comes along, and it says, "Here's the map."
Yeah, yeah,
It's let's create the map. Let's get it right.
yeah, that's right.
Mm.
Yes. And look, of course, we can't talk about Saturn moving into Aries without including the fact that it's with Neptune.
Oh gosh, yeah,
So it's such, Saturn is very base chakra. I often call him the meat and potatoes planet. It's very, very much about reality as it is here right now. And base chakra and Neptune is more a connection, through the crown chakra to those other mystical, invisible realms. And Saturn's very here and now in the body, in your life right this minute.
yes.
Um, Such an interesting story, which we'll continue to, talk about as we go on.
I'd like to add a little bit to that, just a little bit of
Yeah,
history too.
yeah.
And I know we're going over time, but bugger it. I'm back to
Right.
borders.
It's been
Um,
a while.
yeah. Well, I was listening to another astrologer talking about the Saturn-Neptune cycle lasting 35 years. And the last time that occurred was 88, 89. And at that time, we saw the fall of the Berlin Wall, the financial crisis in the US, the beginning of the dissolution of the Soviet Union, which actually ended in 91. 1989 was when India and Pakistan nearly went to war, and they have literally actually gone to war with each other this week. So
That's right.
I find that fascinating, absolutely
That's
fascinating.
that's right. It was also the end of apartheid.
Ah, yes,
There were massive things, and of course, all that one was happening in the sign of Capricorn.
yeah,
But yeah, very, very significant.
yes. So this is a way that we can look back on what's happened in the past to see what we might expect now or what's
That's
going on.
right.
Yeah,
That's right. That's right. There are very significant movements happening, and because we're talking Aries, of course, one of the shadow sides of Aries is the impulse to war
yeah,
and conflict and military, but it's also about the possibilities of something very new being birthed that we have not seen before.
yes.
And it's really extraordinary that this conjunction will happen, right there at 1 degree of Aries.
And the other thing too, if you go back a couple of cycles to 1917, that was the Russian Revolution. And also, like you just said, something new, the suffragettes began their White House protest. And
Yes,
that had never happened before.
that's right.
Mm.
That's right. So we are absolutely in uncharted territory in very new times, going through a time we've not seen on this planet. And, here we all are.
Yeah.
Um, So then that brings us to the new moon on the 27th of May at 6 degrees of Gemini, making a close conjunction to Mercury, the ruling planet of Gemini. So it's going to be a very mercurial new moon, and it makes a trine to Pluto in early Aquarius. So it's a very air element
Yes. Yeah.
new moon, that one. Very different to this full moon that we're coming up to now.
So, did you want to talk about the Eris Chiron conjunction as well happening? We talked about that earlier.
Yes, yes, that's been they've been very close together now for a little while, and they form an exact conjunction. I don't recall the exact date, but
I
it's
think
pretty much around this full moon, isn't it?
around the next moon, new moon in Gemini. I think it's the 27th of May.
Oh, it's right at the end of the month. Okay.
Yes, just before or right on the new moon in Gemini.
Yeah, so Eris is that she's been in Aries the whole of the last century, one of the newly discovered outer planets. It's a very long orbit. Um, she's that bit of a wild card, rebellious warrior energy who disrupts the status quo very much, where everyone's kind of on their best behavior and carrying on like everything's fine. But underneath all of that, things aren't really quite fine. And we can talk more about that next time and sort of unpack that a bit more.
Well,
So,
just one thing I'd just like to leave with that, and you can say what you want then, we can wind up. But I was looking on another website and they had an image of um, uh, Eris on the back of Chiron. I thought was very provocative too.
oh,
And the words underneath were when the what is it? When the wound demands war and war demands healing. And I thought, wow, there's a lot in that. But like you said, we'll unpack that next time.
wow. Yeah, bring that back because that's very, very interesting.
Yes.
Yes. So Eris can be through her actions a trigger for war,
Yes.
but reveals so much in that. And Chiron, of course, is the wounded healer. And
Yeah.
Chiron's been going through Aries for a few years now. There's a lot around the wounds of war.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is great. Thank you. If everyone, before you race off, if you enjoyed this episode and you're glad to have us back, let us know in the comments. Give it a like. If you want, give it a share. We would love that. And remember to subscribe and tap the bell so you get the notifications when they come up. So, Babula, always a pleasure to have you.
Oh, thank you, Cheryl. Lovely to be back again. It
I
really is.
know, hooray, we are back.
I knew we'd get there. I knew we'd get there.
Yeah, so until next time, everyone, be safe, be happy, and we'll see you in the next lunar cycle.
Bye, everyone.
Bye for now.